Welcome to this journey where we dialogue with thought and heart leaders to share their reflections on human condition and how to improve them.
I had a very interesting childhood in several ways. First of all, I was the only child. So that was, I got a lot of attention from my parents as well as from other relatives. Those were very different times. I'll give you an example of how close-knit the family then was. I was the only child. My parents were in Karachi. And my aunt and my eldest Foi, my father's eldest sister, very close. Their son was in London during the wartime, and he had some problems also. So she was very anxious, very worried. She was very fond of me. So my parents, only child, they shipped me from Karachi to Mumbai to stay with her for 3 years. This is simply not thinkable today. But this happened actually. They used to visit me and so on, but I was actually with my aunt during the time she was under stress. Now, so I've seen a very, it was not a joint family in the sense of everybody staying together. Everybody was separate, and yet the close-knitness was enormous. That kind of concern for each other. And mind you, that family of mine from my father's side was a remarkable family, because we had this aunt's husband was very much a capitalist. He was the chief executive of India Steam Navigation Company, then a largest shipping company in India, and a very staunch market man. On the other hand, my aunt, another aunt, was a communist. Not only she was a communist, but she lived with a man who was married, and she worked for the government. She was in the Municipal Corporation of Bombay, and she became later on the Deputy Municipal Commissioner. So we had a very peculiar, heterogeneous group of people, all doing their own thing in a sense, and yet being very close together. Now there's something else that I think is also very important, which influenced my family. My father's grandfather was from Surat. He was a petty grocer. That's why they named Khandwalla, because he must have been trading in sugar. And he was not doing well, making losses. So to improve his prospects, he trekked on foot to Mumbai, from Surat to Mumbai, which is quite a distance. And at a time when there were a lot of these thugs on the
highways were like
pirates
on the highway.
Exactly.
Pirates on the highway.
Correct. But the economic exigency was such that he went there. He was very hardworking. Typically, studied under lamplight at night and worked very hard. He was very honest. So he rose in life and became partner of the firm and all that. And then he called his family. That's how he landed up in Mumbai. Otherwise, we would have still been in Surat, and I might have been selling sugar on a little larger scale perhaps, but nonetheless, Karyana. So that's how the family came to Mumbai. Now, my grandfather was quite a remarkable man. He was a medical doctor, Dr. Khandwalla. He was in government service. After his retirement, he was very much into comparative religion. First he joined the Pratna Samaj, then the Arya Samaj, then the Brahmo Samaj. And in 1928, I believe, there was an international conference in Calcutta hosted by the Brahmo Samaj, at which they invited repositories from all over the world, including from the United States, people from Unitarian Church and various other churches. So they came over, and my grandfather showed some of them around Calcutta and other places. Out of the blue, 2 years later, he gets a letter from this Unitarian man, I forgot his name, saying that, look, we are prepared to give you a scholarship to study at Berkeley.
Wow.
Comparative religion. Mind you, a medical doctor,
And retired.
retired at the age of 60 or something.
Correct.
He was asked whether you would like to study. You will have to pay for your passage, but we'll take care of your fees and we'll give you
Scholarship,
monthly allowance
stay
and
there.
all that. Yeah. All that will be taken care of. And my grandfather gladly accepted it, and he spent several years in North America, studying at Berkeley, and then he was in Chicago and so on. He was one of the few people who spoke at the Parliament of Religions, not with Vivekananda, who
Right.
spoke much earlier. But at that time, it was called slightly different body, with the same body but different name. And he spoke along with Swami Yogananda. You must have heard his name.
Yogananda.
Paraman's
Saraswati.
autobiography. of
Autobiography.
Yeah.
Yogi.
That one. And Dr. Sri Prakash was the governor of Bombay. His father, Dr. somebody, I forget his name. There were three speakers, and my grandfather was one of them at the Parliament of Religions. And later on, he got a scholarship to study in Japan also, Japanese religions. So that scholarship thing was important. Another event that was very important was that my grandfather in 1916, there was a big, at that time there was a movement for reforming Hinduism, beginning in Bengal and then spreading to other parts of India, Maharashtra and Gujarat and so on. At that time there was a big dining thing at which Harijans were invited. They were not called Harijans then, they were called
Yeah.
Bangis.
Yeah, yeah.
But they were invited, and so he ate with them. Now that was at that time an enormous sin.
Very radical.
Radical, yeah. He was outcast. And he had 5 daughters to marry. Now, it was a time when, at that time, even the barber would not come home if you were outcast.
Yes.
Nobody would keep any relationship with you, and there were these 4 or 5 daughters who get married. How do you do it? And my grandmother, who was fairly orthodox Hindu, she said, nothing doing. My grandfather thought, let me do the penance and get back into the caste. She said, nothing doing. I didn't approve of this, but now that you've done it, you're not going to do any penance.
Go back
You
to
better stick
to it.
We'll fight it
Very
out.
remarkable.
Fight it out. In Narmad, she was a student of Narmad
I say.
in Surat. એટલે એ જાતના સંસ્કાર,
Correct.
those kinds of sanskars were there. This happened well before my birth. But this is the mahal in which I grew up, where you had this. And then my father was a nationalist. He was in the freedom movement. He went to jail several times, got beaten up, lathi charge and all that. So he had this kind of a very tolerant family, very independent. Everybody was doing his own thing and yet very close knit, and ranging all the way from communism to capitalism
Capital
to
markets.
nationalism to whatever else.